I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian. She's gonna take care of everything you need.
God bless America.
А ты работаешь вне клуба?
What do you do to get all this?
I'm a really big drug dealer.
Oh, really?
You trust me? No.
Mikey, as you said in another interview, Sean Baker gave you the freedom to build your Annie from the ground up. What is one particular thing about your character that you're most proud of?
I am really proud of her fighting spirit. I think she's a very scrappy person. She's very passionate and opinionated. She is, she'll never back down. You know, she's willing to fight for what she believes is rightfully hers, and I admire that.
Yeah, I mean, particularly in one home invasion scene that gets talked about a lot and is quite intense also.
Ты что делаешь? Ты себе можешь вот так в мой дом ходить?
Наткнулся на какой-то проститутке?
What?
This is not a real marriage. We're getting in an old...
Was there a safe word on set if things got like too intense?
No, I think if anything like that would have happened, you just yell cut and stop. But the environment that Sean created on set was a very comfortable, safe one. And so there was no need for that. It was exciting to throw yourself into those scenes. And we had done quite a bit of like pre-rehearsal and choreography for the stunts. And so we knew what we were doing in those situations.
In that scene, Annie is screaming at the top of her lungs. How demanding was that on your vocal cords, but also mentally?
Yeah, well, I don't often scream, and so you don't really know what that's going to sound like when it comes out. You just have to kind of go for it and commit yourself to that moment. But yeah, I don't think I quite had like the vocal or like the lung capacity that I did when I was a little bit younger maybe. And so I found myself like thinking, okay, like I'm only going to be able to do a couple more takes of screaming at this level. And so I would tell Sean and we would navigate that. But it was fine. I mean, it also kind of hoarsened my voice a little bit for some of the other scenes that we shot in the mansion, because we shot all of the scenes in the mansion at one time basically. And so it was kind of interesting, actually, for later in the film.
Speaking of later in the film, Annie gets into a lot of WTF situations, but you played like with a straight face or like a what the fuck is going on face.
Oh.
Was it tough to like stay like in character all the time, or did you have like moments where you just had to laugh out loud because it gets so ridiculous?
I mean, I think there's always times where someone laughs, or I remember we were filming a scene in a diner very, very late at night. We all were running on like very little sleep, and for whatever reason, Yura was like, he took his ketchup bottle to put it on ketchup on a burger, and he was like very seriously and slowly making the ketchup bottle fart. It was absolutely ridiculous and so obnoxious. And it was really hard to keep a straight face during that. But it's frustrating because Yura is so, I don't know, so completely committed, more than any actor I've ever worked with. And so he never broke, but he would just do the most ridiculous thing. So yeah, long answer to your short question, but of course it happens sometimes. I also had fun making the movie, you know, and so I think that added to it.
I love that you brought up Yura. He's amazing in it.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of rehearsal time with him before the shooting? Because like there seems like a lot of respect and understanding.
No rehearsal. I have to say that there wasn't really much of that for this particular film. But Yura and I tried to get to know each other a little bit before filming, and he's very dedicated to the realism of his character, and I think is often sort of immersing himself into that world as much as possible. And so I think he was able to cultivate a relationship with me that added to the film certain points that our characters were in. I think he he was definitely adding to the layers of that outside of filming, which is something that I didn't quite realize until we were done. But that's just the brilliance of who Yura is as an actor.
I want to go back to the not getting enough sleep part. Was that helpful in terms of improvisation? Because like when you're not sleeping that much, you just like do things, not overthink them. Did that maybe help in certain situations?
Well, there was one night that Mark and I, which I also never do this, by the way. I'm like an old woman, I like to go to bed early, but we decided to go out and see some of my friends at a party in the city, and we were having such a good time. We didn't get back home until we had to go to set in the morning, and we were like, oh no, how are we gonna do this? But it ended up being the most amazing day in terms of improvisation, I think, because you have this kind of like F-it attitude where everything surface level is peeled back and you're kind of more raw on the inside. And so it was actually a totally wonderful day. But yeah, I mean, I think as an actor, it's part of my job to try to work with what I'm already feeling and try to bring it into the character's emotionality.
Sean Baker makes these beautiful little human stories, but like privately he likes to watch a lot of obscure horror movies or action movies from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Did you watch any with him in pre-production or during the production? Was there any time for that? And if yes, do you have any recommendations?
Oh, we watched a couple films during production. There wasn't much time. And then since then, we've had lots of movie nights. But he, before we started shooting, he sent me a handful of movies to watch to sort of get some kind of energy or vibe from certain scenes or characters. And so he sent me some Depardieu films. Lulu specifically was one he really wanted me to see. There's some good kind of scrappy fight scenes in that I think he wanted me to feel inspired by. And he sent me some like 70s Italian sexploitation films, like a Franco film of Vampiros Lesbos. And then he sent me a Japanese film from the 70s, I believe, or 80s, Female Prisoner Scorpion. So like, yeah, very obscure films. It's funny, he was like, oh, so, you know, talking about this one film, like I know what he's talking about. And I'm like, I've never seen that before. He's like, what do you mean you've never seen this German film from the 60s that was only released in like one country? I'm like, he's just such a cinephile. It's amazing to be around somebody like that.
And it makes you wonder where he gets like these films.
He buys lots of like Blu-rays on eBay and finds them random places. So whenever I can't find a movie somewhere, like I can't buy it online, I'm always like, oh, Sean will have that for sure.
As a last question, we asked in our office, like if they want to ask you anything, and a colleague of mine called Nora had one particular question. I have to read it off here. She wants to know, why do you slay so hard? Which is probably just a compliment, to be honest. But if you want to turn into a question, I would say, how do you slay so hard in this
Like,
film?
how does Annie slay so hard? Yeah. I think that she just, well, thank you for that compliment/question. I think that she just has so much attitude. She's very confident, and I think she's also, she's sure of her place in the world, even if other people aren't, you know? And I think that she's just willing to move through her universe in a strong way, like confident in her sexuality, and she's, yeah.
Well, you slayed the part. Thank you so much for this movie, for your performance, and for your time. Thank you so much.
I am meatballs! Why?
I like Anora. It's a good name.